I think the heart of Leeds just feels like it's not there anymore. They'll come to us and sing Leeds are falling apart, but it's also like, where's your famous atmosphere, things like that.
That's very interesting, isn't it? That's a big statement. Hello guys, welcome to the Sportsman Untitled. This week we'll be discussing the sacking of Mark Robins at Coventry. We'll be talking about the future of Rob Edwards at Luton, and we'll also be doing a deep dive into Millwall and taking a look at Leeds United. Of course, joining me this week, we've got Gab Sutton as usual and Natasha from All Leeds TV. Gab, let's start with you. A very interesting week in the Championship, not least with the sacking of Mark Robins.
Yeah, I feel for Coventry City fans at the moment, Simon. I think it's made it a very difficult job for whoever comes in to replace Mark Robins, just because he's such a legendary figure. And, you know, I would always think it would be easier if you're replacing somebody like him, if the era ended amicably, where Mark Robins maybe left at the end of the season, where he had a chance to kind of thank the fans against Middlesbrough on the final day, whatever the outcome of the season was. And you could kind of draw a line under it, and then there's a lot of time, I think, then fans to sort of process the disappointment. But the way Doug King's gone about it, it means that fans are quite over the old manager, and yet they've sort of got to try and embrace a new one. And I think that's going to be a very difficult situation. And I think the next manager is going to run the risk of being a bit of a stepfather figure, the one who stands where he stood.
Absolutely, Natasha. From your kind of neutral point of view, looking at things from another Championship club, what did you make of the news that Mark Robins had left Coventry?
Yeah, I mean, they deserve better as well. I don't think they deserve to be. Certainly, I quite like Coventry. I quite like the fan base and stuff. So, seeing them struggling a bit is a bit sad. But yeah, I just hope they don't get Frank Lampard. That's
the favourite at the moment, doesn't he? Why don't you think? Why are you anti Frank Lampard then?
I just think he's rubbish. I think like him, Rooney, Gerrard, I just don't think they're good managers.
Gab, for you, obviously he is favourite as we speak. We're speaking on Monday morning. Doug King's doing a fans forum tonight with the Coventry fans. It feels like there will be some sort of announcement soon. He spoke about getting a new head coach in rather than manager before kind of the international break so that he could work with the players. Your view on Frank Lampard, if it is going that way?
I have a feeling about Frank Lampard, and I hate to kind of put all high-profile ex-footballers under the same umbrella, because I know that they would possibly resent that a little bit. But I think it's difficult to avoid this feeling that I have with Frank Lampard, and this is just a gut instinct. I don't know Frank. I don't know how he prepares for the possibility of another job in management. But I get the sense with him and with other sort of high-profile ex-footballers whereby they're no longer players, so they kind of feel like they're missing the adrenaline rush of being having that 3:00. We've got something on a Saturday. We've got something to play for. High stakes moments, the pressure of management, a bit like a drug, if you like, that kind of the adrenaline that brings. But then also part of what management involves is coming into the office in June to study a player that had been out on loan at Northampton last season and how they might fit into your team and all those sorts of details that are involved in management. And I feel like Frank Lampard, my instinct is I think he wants the adrenaline rush, but I don't know that he's prepared to do the hard yards and do the detailed work, sitting down and looking through Y-Scout and all the details that involves. Whereas I do think that other coaches are more open to that side of the job.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I wouldn't expect Coventry to be able to appoint a manager with Premier League experience, particularly. He has managed 2 clubs in the Premier League, perhaps. I don't know if I'm just trying to be positive here. If it is Frank Lampard, perhaps he is better than he gets credit with because he gets lumped in with a Rooney or a Gerrard and that kind of golden generation of players who we've seen fail at different clubs. He's a manager who got Derby into the playoffs, albeit using many loans, which is something else I want to ask you about, Gab, because at the moment Coventry don't do loans, and Frank Lampard or whoever the new head coach is, will they be able to get loans in January? Will Doug King change for the new manager where he didn't make those allowances for Mark Robins?
I don't necessarily think that Coventry need to. I don't think Coventry's problem right now is that they don't use the loan market. I actually think it's a really sensible thing that the club have invested in long-term assets, and I think they've got some really talented players there. And if they have a great seat, if any of somebody like Ephron Mason-Clark, who they got from Peterborough, great, become very valuable for the club, whereas somebody on loan wouldn't be. So I think the club on balance has the right model. I think they probably need 2 or 3 more experience heads in January, just to kind of give that balance between youth and experience. So that will be the area that I think the club need to compromise their model.
Natasha, for you, where do you think Mark Robins will end up next? It's been thought of that many Championship clubs would obviously like him. He's been in a Championship playoff final. He's been to an FA Cup semi-final in the last 18 months. Do you think he'll be a manager that takes another Championship club pretty soon, or do you think he'll have some time out of the game?
I'm not too sure. Maybe Luton.
Yeah, we're going to come on to them. We are.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? In fact, let's come on to Luton, because a big defeat this weekend, 5-1 to Middlesbrough. It feels like the fan base are slightly turning against Rob Edwards. Do you think their underperformance this season is worthy of getting Rob Edwards the sack, Natasha?
Yeah, it's hard because obviously they're in Premier League, and then normally clubs that come down from the Premier League at sort of top Championship fighting for promotion again. And then obviously you are like losing every week in the Premier League, so it is a negative atmosphere and feelings anyway. But yeah, the fact that they're doing so poorly is just, yeah, I do feel for them, because it's just non-stop losing again, isn't it? Normally you come back down from the Premier League and then you're like, okay, at least Championship's a bit easier, maybe. But yeah, not for them. Yeah, sorry, I can't remember the question. What's the question again?
It was something about Rob Edwards. Gab, Luton losing again, it feels like, especially with his post-match press conference that I saw, it felt like he was almost resigned to losing his job. We know these international breaks are a time where clubs make decisions like this. Do you think it's almost time up for him?
He did seem very emotional in his interview, didn't he, Simon? And it does make you wonder if, he was sort of half saying goodbye at the time. It was actually quite touching, his interview, but I'm not sure sort of whether that was the effect that he was going for. But I think he does look quite drained by the experience of relegation and the start of the season for this season at Luton. And I just think they've been too open this season, and they've missed that bit of steel and that bit of tenacity and sort of defensive balance. And that's why they've, I think, got one of the worst defensive records in the Championship. And that seems to have been their undoing this season. So, yeah, I can see why Luton Town fans are calling for change.
You think a job swap might be on the cards? We don't really see it in the Championship. Rob Edwards to Covent and Mark Robins to Luton. Natasha, what would you make of that?
Yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see. Yeah, well, I don't know if that Coventry would want Luton's manager, but he might do better with a fresh start and different team. Yeah.
Gab.
Yeah, I think for me, if Rob Edwards were to lose his job at Luton, I do wonder whether he could benefit from some time out of the game, because sometimes I speak to managers who have had some time out of work, and they actually find the time out of work to be their most valuable period, because you can learn a lot. You can take a step back, you can reflect on your work and think, what have I done right? What can I sort of improve on? You can go into different sports or different businesses and work out different leadership styles. You can watch games at different levels to take ideas, and it gives you a kind of more of a big picture perspective that is difficult to actually get when you're in work and it's the Saturday, Tuesday grind. So I think for a lot of managers, I think some time out of work can be really valuable. And I do wonder whether for Rob Edwards, if he was to lose his job at Luton, hopefully he doesn't, because I think he's a good manager and he's done some good work there in the past. But I think if he does lose his job, then maybe some time out of work might be valuable.
That's kind of where I'm at with Mark Robins as well. I think obviously 7 years at a club, working so hard, working with so many different challenges along the way. It feels like, although he'll be getting some probably big offers over the next coming months, perhaps some time out of the game to really kind of recharge, were doing really good. It's a tough situation.
Well, that's the other thing, Simon, isn't it? Because you don't get much time with your family during your work because it's so demanding. So I think that can be another important thing for managers, in terms of their personal life, invest a little bit of time in that as well during their time at work.
Absolutely. You were at Sunderland versus Coventry this weekend, weren't you, Gab? Yeah. Anything you really took from that? Obviously, the first game after Robins, but also Sunderland, kind of a very weird second half performance where they threw away a 2-goal lead. Yeah,
I think a massive admirer of what Régis Lebris has done at Sunderland so far. I think he's been a steady hand for this young squad, and some of the work he's implemented, the structure he's implemented has been great. I just felt in the second half of their game management, if I looked at them in the first half, I think they had this lovely balance whereby they'd look after the ball at times, they'd press at times at the right moment, but they kind of picked and choose their moments to do both things, and then also sometimes they dropped into a really compact shape. So they had a really good sort of equilibrium of sort of game management, and they could play different beats to the game. And then in the second half, a little bit of Coventry coming on to them as you'd expect. I thought Lou Binks for Coventry played some lovely diagonals, which we may come on to. But I felt with Sunderland they kind of they invited pressure a lot, and part of that is due to Coventry coming on to them, and part of it is that instinct to protect the lead. But I think there's also a game management sort of in-game management aspect to this from Régis Lebris, which is he put on, when Alan Brown was forced off about an hour in, he brought on Dan Ballard rather than another midfielder. I think he had Alexic on the bench. And I think going to a back three, changing the shape was a bit of an awkward one because it meant that they lost a bit of that foothold in midfield and kind of invited Coventry onto them. Another one was probably bringing on, sorry, I banged the table there, Aaron Connolly instead of the other lad, Elisa Mienda, who actually had a really good start to the season, whereas Aaron Connolly hasn't played much football. So I would have thought Elisa Mienda would have been one who could maybe hold on to the ball a bit better and link players that are sort of middle forward. I was surprised Watson didn't come on either. And just generally, I think they lost a bit of an outlet. So that they had Wilson Isidore, who moves sort of out wide. Not sure that necessarily helped him, but he remained sort of their one outlet. But for me, Sunderland just dropped in so much, and I think they probably tried to sort of defend a lead so much that it kind of invited Coventry and gave them the impetus. So yes, Coventry showed some great spirit after a really difficult week to find a way back into this game. But I think to a large extent, Sunderland probably enabled that.
Absolutely. Natasha, from your perspective, Sunderland obviously emerged as one of Leeds' promotion rivals. What have you made of them so far? And are you slightly concerned that they're looking pretty good so far?
Yeah, it's different to last season with, Leicester and Ipswich and stuff. So I think the top three are quite closer this year. And they don't seem to be as good as the teams last year. But yeah, they, when we went there and played against them, I thought they were okay. I didn't think they were anything special against us. Obviously, we messed it up for ourselves quite a bit at the end. But yeah, I think, they're looking good this season, and the fans and stuff seem really up for it as well. Yeah. So I think.
Gab, from your perspective, let's just round off this bit of Coventry chat because a new manager might be appointed at some point, whether it's Lampard or someone else in the near future. What would you say are the things that they have to get right early on for Coventry to start climbing the table and players to maybe build around?
I personally think that replacing Mark Robins at Coventry is going to require a huge amount of people skills and PR nous, because I think when you're coming in as I mentioned earlier, being perceived as a bit of a stepfather figure, coming in from the outside, replacing this sort of club legend who everyone wanted to stay, you've got to be so careful and mindful about the position that puts you in. And I think if it was me in their shoes and I was the one replacing Mark Robins, I would actually show quite a bit of vulnerability about it. I would almost say, do you know what, I feel a little bit apprehensive because I'm aware of the legacy that Mark Robins created, and he did such a fantastic job here. Now, of course, you've got to sort of show some authority as well. So it's a really interesting balancing act. I'll be really curious to see how the next manager plays that kind of political side, because I think getting it right is going to be crucial to giving themselves any sort of chance of getting that tenure right. But truthfully, I think you want to be the guy who follows Mark Robbins rather than
I don't mean
Thanks, Simon. So I think that's going to be. I think it's going to be a very difficult gig for someone. Yeah.
Do you think Doug King will? I mean, it's going to depend on results over the next 6 months, isn't it? Do you think it's a mistake right now? What's your gut instinct?
What, to sack Mark Robbins?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a really bad decision. Even if you've got the view that Mark Robbins might not be the one that you feel is right to carry out your sort of vision for the club strategically in terms of head coach, sporting director model that it may be that Doug King wants to go down. I think you've kind of got to recognise the template that's already in place is working, so don't reinvent the wheel. Another one is you've got to recognise what the feelings of the supporters are. That's a massive factor that's going to dictate the feeling around the club. So, okay, you might think that you want a different person for the long term, but you've also got to manage that situation very carefully. So I think if I was in Doug King's shoes and I happen to have the view that you'd want someone other than Mark Robbins in the long term, I would say maybe talk to him at the end of the season, just before the game against Middlesbrough on the final day, and think, "Hi, Mark. Look, we're thinking of going in a different direction next season. We really appreciate the work that you've done. We wanted to give you one more game just to say thank you to the supporters and to finish things off, if you like." And I think that would have been a much better way of doing it, because then the fan base would have had the whole summer to kind of absorb the idea of somebody new coming into the club. And then by the time that August comes around, they can be on board with it, as opposed to them coming in right from the cold. And I think that's going to create a very difficult situation for the new person right from the off. So, yeah, the psychology of it and the politics of it, I think is going to be a massive challenge.
Very well said, Gab. Very well said. We're going to move on to the next part of our show now, where we're going to look at Millwall and, of course, Leeds United in focus. Let's start with Millwall, Natasha, because they got a decent run of form at the minute, and they're looking pretty good. I think they're surprising quite a few teams right now.
Yeah, I do think that they do have spurts in seasons, though. I think it's quite typical of Millwall, and then they drop off a bit and then end up really like mid-table. But I mean, I can't. Yeah, they beat us, didn't they? So
that's why I came to you first. I wanted to know what did you make of them? Obviously, it was a 1-0 win, but it's a great result for them.
Yeah, I just think they park the bus a lot, which is obviously a good tactic, but I just hate watching that kind of football. And then, they just got a really crappy goal, which was frustrating. But again, it's another team that's backed up really heavily by the fan base, sort of like Coventry and Leeds. So it's just that pushed them on as well. That chant that they do where they don't say any words, it can be quite daunting, can't it? So I think they're doing well, but I don't know if they'll keep it up, to be honest.
They're actually saying mill, but they say it in a very prolonged way.
Just like, shut up. It just does your head in. And hearing all that as like players and stuff, it would just probably, it would frustrate me. But yeah, we had a lot of the possession, which is typical Leeds really as well, but didn't do anything with it. I thought Park was a bit silly to moan about that they were time wasting. It was like we had possession the whole game. That extra time isn't really going to make much difference. But they knew the tactics to play. They knew where we're weak, and they did that. And they got the result. So.
Gab, for you, Millwall this season, I mean, really impressive so far in terms of results. Neil Harris is an interesting kind of character, isn't he? But he seems to work at that club.
Yeah, certainly does. It's funny, isn't it? Because I think if you're playing Millwall at home, you'd be very disappointed with a draw if you're a promotion contender. But if you went to the Den, I think you'd be like, just get a point and get out of there, because they create such an intimidating atmosphere at the Den. I think getting Japhet Tanganga back permanently was an absolute masterstroke. I'm actually surprised that they were able to get him permanently, because I think he's a defender with a lot of potential given his sort of athleticism. I think Casper Nanor, when you think of his sort of European experience, I think he's brought a lot to Millwall this season. And then you got Romain Esse out wide, who looks like a really prodigious talent. And you combine that with a manager in Neil Harris, who the fans just have a real affinity with, and he them. They're looking like a bit of a force at the moment. So, could do more than survive this season, potentially.
Are you slightly disappointed? I'm picking out one negative here with Macaulay Langstaff so far this season, because he obviously joined from Notts County with an unbelievable goal-scoring record. It's not quite taken off for him there, and he seems to not be a certain starter right now anyway.
Yeah, I think the challenge that Macaulay Langstaff has had, and probably the same for Tom Bradshaw, because I wouldn't say Bradshaw has necessarily been prolific at Millwall, despite having scored goals previously in his career with places like Walsall. I think that if you'd put Macaulay Langstaff alongside a peak Steve Morrison, so they remember the Steve Morrison when they're pushing for promotion from League One and just missed out on the playoffs in the Championship in 17-18. Those were the kind of prime Steve Morrison. Yeah, I mean, Natasha won't know what I'm talking about with prime Steve Morrison. You didn't really see the rest of him at Leeds, did you? But no, I think Morrison is somebody who could kind of win the flick-ons and sort of spearhead the attacks and kind of allow Macaulay Langstaff to get on the end of that. Obviously, Morrison's now long since retired, and I don't think that Millwall have ever quite been able to replace him. So I think that makes it difficult and has made it difficult for centre forwards at Millwall in the last few years, because they've not had somebody like that to feed off, whereas Lee Gregory, for instance, did have that in his time there. So, yeah, that's the big problem for me for Millwall, or the big challenge, should we say. Like, Macaulay Langstaff never stops running. I think he's a prolific finisher when he gets his opportunities, and he hasn't quite been as clinical as maybe Millwall fans would have wanted. But I think it's harder for him being operating as a lane striker when he hasn't got that target man up top with him.
I'll get both of your views, but I think Natasha's already made hers quite clear. Do you think they can finish in the top six, or is that a pipe dream for you?
Shall I go? I think so. I've got the top six in front of me. So I think Sunderland, Sheffield United, Leeds and West Brom will all finish top six. I think Middlesbrough are probably a better team than Millwall in terms of chance creation. But I do wonder if there could be a space open. I mean, I think Burnley have got more individual quality than Millwall, but then Millwall are going to be more galvanised. I'm probably going to say I think it's going to be difficult. I think Leeds are obviously... so Sunderland, Sheffield United, Leeds, West Brom, Middlesbrough. Millwall might be in a shot for six, especially given that Norwich are out of form at the moment and Sheffield Wednesday haven't quite hit the heights that I was hoping for. But I think it's going to be difficult for them. But they're having a great season, so I've got to give them a lot of credit for that.
So, Natasha, do you agree with it? It might be too much of an ask for a top six finish, even though they're on a good little run?
Yeah, definitely. I can't ever say I want Millwall to be top six, sorry.
Right, let's move on.
Top six if they're playing Leeds at home in every game, Natasha.
No, God don't. They're teams that just really get on my nerves. I really...
Let's move on to Leeds United. Still title favourites. What have you made of the season so far on the whole? As you say, the promotion contenders don't seem quite as strong as they were last season. It feels like I don't want to say Leeds' title to lose, but it almost feels that way from the other Championship clubs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't seem as competitive as last season. I think we've done quite well considering who left. We had quite a bit of our main players left. So what Fark has done and, made it sturdy again as well. I think Leeds fans are just a bit like, at the minute, like, bored. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
You're like third in the league, aren't you?
Even how well you're playing, Natasha.
Honestly, the atmosphere, like last three games, you could hear a pin drop, and there's a lot of moaning about Fark, even though, like you say, we're third and winning quite a bit. There's still a lot of moaning about him. He's very split at the minute. I sound really, like negative at the minute, but I just don't know if we're just going to do a typical Leeds and like just not go up again. I think what it is Bielsa was the best thing and worst thing that happened to us. So now it's like, we went up as champions. I think if we don't go up as champions, everyone will be annoyed, or we just know that we'll probably end up messing it up, especially if we've got playoffs again. We'll definitely mess it again.
Do you mind me asking, Natasha, do you think that there's partly a demographic issue here whereby older fans who had seen Leeds United be profoundly successful in the 1960s and 70s under Don Revie, and even winning the first division title in 1992, I think. But whereas I wonder, maybe newer fans are used to the financial issues at Leeds of the 90s and early noughties, or even into the 2010s, and the sort of the way you've been in the doldrums in the last sort of 20, 30 years, I guess. So, is there a fan base is there a demographic issue at play here whereby maybe the younger fans are more patient and the older fans get more frustrated because they still see Leeds United as a top 10 club in England kind of thing?
Yeah, but it's weird because with the younger fans, obviously, all that they think about was that they've waited 16 years and then they've never really had the good time. So they've waited 16 years, got to the Premier League. It's been an absolute disaster. Well, apart from the first season we were up, but this second, third season, it was like absolutely rubbish, really depressing. We come back down and it's like, do we even want to go up? But we hate this league, but do you want to go up and get beat every week again? But I think what it is that people aren't confident enough in Farks that if we did get up, keep Farks. That would be, I think, the next debate. But I think just Farks football is very boring to watch.
Really, you think so?
A lot of sideways, backwards. I think again we just got so spoiled by Bielsa and the pace of it, everything, and we've not had that. It's like what you said about replacing Mark Robbins. It's having that character in there again that's gonna make like the whole. I don't know if your fan base has like been split over that, but then with Bielsa it was like very split. Half of them were like, no, he does need to go. Half of them was like, no, he really needs to stay, because of just what else he brought out of what was just going on in the pitch. And I think that's happening now. Is just that I don't know. It just seems all of it. It just seems really bad at Leeds at the minute. Just the whole.
Yeah. It's interesting if I can just pick up on sort of your description of Fark football, because I would actually put last season's Leeds and this season's Leeds in different categories. I think, to my eyes as an outsider, last season's Leeds very reliant on individual players. This season's Leeds, I actually think you're a lot more creative, but probably need when Junior Firpo's absent, you probably need a different, a left back that can still hold the width a little bit, because I'm not sure how well Sam Byram does that. But I definitely feel like this season you're much better at sustaining pressure and creating a higher volume of chances.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We've got a lot more attacking options up front, and wingers and midfield is either going more forward now. I think the massive difference was having Ampadu and Gruev go out because they were quite negative, and they've been replaced. I think Rothwell and Tanaka have just done an absolute fantastic job there, and like I say, going forward a lot more. And I think we do look a lot better this season. It's just disheartening when you go to places where you think you're going to win. I just think we're just really spoiled. And
What made you think you're going to win at Millwall? You've got an awful record there.
Just London games in general, we have an awful record. But it's like the QPR came. We've made it hard for ourselves, and like when we're 1-0 up most of the game, and you're just like, they could still snatch this anyway. It's just a typical Leeds thing, and you just like that Leeds are falling apart. You're just waiting for it constantly, and I think that's what. There's a lot of tension and a lot of like.
How do Leeds United try and change that mentality? Because it is something opposition fans sing about Leeds United, because there's always that sort of anticipation. Maybe it's crept into your own fans. Is there anything Daniel Farker can do? Is there anything the club can do to sort of try and change the mentality of the club?
I just really don't know. I think quite a lot of, I don't know if you, like what you said earlier, the older generation, they think that we're a lot bigger than we are because of our history. It was a big realisation when we went up that we're not. And we haven't got the money. Is like, you know, you need a lot of money to be doing well in Premier League. Obviously you've got a few Aston Villa, you know, exceptions and stuff like that, but I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it. I think it's just a mixture of everything, and it just like at the minute you can just hear a pin drop, and it's like say they'll come to us and sing Leeds falling apart, but it's also like, where's your famous atmosphere, things like that. I think the heart of Leeds just feels like it's not there anymore.
It's very interesting, isn't it? That's a big statement. I feel like, though, a lot of the time I've seen a lot of Leeds home games this season where I've just thought the opposition just has no chance of getting anything here. Then you beat Coventry 3-0, you beat Plymouth 3-0, and they didn't have a shot. I just feel there's that level. And I guess maybe if most fans are seeing that every week, I don't know. Maybe there's that level of expectation, which sometimes isn't being met if you do drop points or even you're not ahead by the hour mark. Maybe that's part of the problem.
Yeah, there's that stat as well that if we go up 1-0, we're not going to lose. So that's really good. Yeah, everything is.
And you're still moaning.
It's really good, but I don't know. Like, yeah, there is a bit of a divide at the minute. You get some people like, why are you moaning? Like, look where we are, blah, blah, blah. But then you just got loads. I think mostly ones in the ground that are just like, I'm just not feeling it.
Fair enough. Do you think Clark deserves credit for, I mean, probably three of your best players are out injured, Ramazani, Gruev and Padu. That is, any team in the Championship struggles without three massively influential players like that, and yet it doesn't seem to have affected you too much because of, say, the replacements. The
replacements that we've got have just been absolutely brilliant. Normally it hits us bad, but yeah, it's worked in our favour for once. Like say Firpo, when he's out, we do miss that. I think Nonto's shining more now that I think before he was like, it was all about Somerville. So I think Nonto's up to prove himself a lot more this time. And Bogle, I don't think has been brilliant, but last game against QPR, him and Nonto linked up, I thought, brilliantly. But it just.
It's interesting. It is interesting to hear like a different point of view, because from the outside you think Leeds are going to finish in the top two, probably maybe win the league, but you seem less convinced. Are there any other teams that you think are more likely to win the league than Leeds right now? Gab, I'm coming to you later. I know what you're going to say.
This is the thing. I think it's just our own doing. It's not even about how good the other teams around us are. We just like to shoot ourselves in the foot. And I think the biggest, we just do it to ourselves. Like we defeat ourselves. I don't think any team really could. I think, like say on paper and stuff, I think we're absolutely brilliant and we are one of the best in the league. And if we could, I don't know, it's just literally like the curse of Leeds that just always hangs over us. I'm just like, come on, please. Please not again. It's just like years and years of it. It's hard to just not feel that confident. But yeah, I do think Sunderland will go up. Don't know, maybe West Brom or Burnley. I don't know about Sheffield United, maybe. They didn't look good against us, but then, I think
other teams look poor. It shows they're a good team.
Look poor, but then they can still nick it, which is really annoying. Like say, like Sunderland game, Melia, that where he let the ball bounce and whatnot, and just even now it's like frustrating just looking at it, because like every point counts, and you just look at the table now where it's just 2-3 points ahead, and it's like if only if you just got it.
You'd be top of the league if Melia hadn't done that.
I wonder if there's an element of comparison at play here, Natalie, whereby I'm coming back to the sort of the demographic thing. I think when you've seen Leeds United have these two such successful eras, I just wonder if it becomes harder for certain generations of fans to kind of appreciate what's in front of them, because there's always a comparison to what's gone before. And I think really the way forward is to try and just embrace the journey and embrace the players that are in front of you, rather than thinking, why aren't you Strachan, Speed, Batty, all that kind of thing. It's comparing it to the past.
We still sing Champions of Europe. We like to hold on to the past.
It's a weird chant, that, Natalie.
Yeah, it's just tongue in cheek sort of chant. Ironic chant. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just being really negative, and you might get, when this goes out, loads of people going, "Oh, shut up, what's she on about?" But just speaking to friends around us and stuff like that, and seeing it on social media and things, that quite a lot of people are feeling like that. But I don't think we appreciate it. Even when Bielsa was in charge, we still had loads of negativity because we didn't go up that first season, and it was like, oh, we're even going to do it the second season and stuff. So we are just normally like that anyway. Yeah.
So if we have to say now, round off this Leeds chat, if you had to say now, where do Leeds finish? What does your heart tell you?
Probably third. But I don't know. I don't like saying it because I don't want to jinx it if we did do better. But I don't know, because we have done well against the top teams anyway. Yeah.
Do you want me to say it for you? I cannot see a world in which Leeds don't finish in the top two, and I think they'll win the league. I think you'll win the league quite comfortably based on those home performances against teams that aren't picking up points elsewhere. So I think Leeds will win the league by a decent margin. Gab, you're less certain, but right, you think Leeds will get promoted this season?
Yeah, definitely top two. Yeah,
but not top. Do you still think Sunderland?
Yeah, do you know what? Leeds have been fantastic for me. So it wouldn't surprise me if they won the league. I'm obviously sticking with my Sunderland shout, but yeah, I think Leeds have been
excellent stuff. Right, let's leave Leeds there. Gab, it is time for your weekly corner of concern, please. Interesting one this week, because there's a few teams down there, a few teams struggling. Anyone that you want to pick out specifically?
I'm a little bit apprehensive about how, not in terms of relegation, obviously, but I worry a little bit about how Norwich have struggled without much squad depth. They're obviously on a bad run of form at the moment. They're winless in 6. They've lost their last 3, and they do seem to have some challenges at the back after that 2-0 home defeat to Bristol City. And I think just with some of those injuries, when you think they're without Kenny McLean, they're without Marcelino Nunez, that Josh Sargent, lots of really influential players that would make a difference to Norwich City. And at the moment, I think I have some sympathy with Johannes Hoftherup in that it's made life a lot more difficult for him without some of those important players. So yeah, I'm slightly worried about Norwich, and I think maybe that reliance on Borja Sainz from earlier in the season has become a bit too much for him to kind of carry the can entirely. And they've got West Bromwich Albion away after the international break. But hopefully the international weekend has come at the right time for them, because it gives them a couple of weeks to get some of those key players back.
Feels so strange, doesn't it? We had Jack from Talk Norwich City, and they were getting very excited about automatic promotion or finishing definitely in the top 6. Changes so quickly, doesn't it? I mean, that's the championship for you. But Gab, is there any danger that Johannes Hoftherup, can I even say that? He's definitely in for the season, we think, right?
I think so, yeah. I think this is very much a project for the future that Norwich City are building. I really like the work that Ben Napper's done. He was very loyal to David Wagner in difficult moments, and I actually have a lot more belief in what Johannes Hoftherup is trying to do in terms of building an identity and a style of play, and I really like a lot of the work that he's done. I think they just happen to find themselves in a bit of a tough moment whereby they're without some really important players, and they don't have much sort of squad depth to kind of get away with that. So I think that's being manifested in the results. So hopefully they can do some business in January. But when you're having to play Emiliano Marcondes had been without a club a month ago, and he's had to play 90 minutes 3 times in the space of a week. You're asking somebody like Jakob Sorensen, who hasn't played an awful lot, to start in midfield, and probably hasn't quite been at the races in terms of somebody to kind of be relied on. And then if you look at the bench that they've got, it's very youthful. So some difficulties for Norwich right now. But I also feel like once they get some of those key players back, I think they could come back into that playoff conversation. But right now, it's a tough moment for them.
Absolutely. There's no Gab Championship treble this week because there's no fixtures, obviously. So instead, we're going to pick our Championship five-a-side team plus a manager from this season so far. Natasha, is there any Leeds players you think should certainly be in the best five-a-side team we could put together so far?
Yeah, Tanaka.
Really? That's interesting. He has been good since coming into the team. But do you think even when Gruev and Ampadu come back, he'll be a starter now?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. Cause,
what about Rothwell, Natasha? Do you think Rothwell stays in?
I just think don't put Ampadu and Gruev together because they're so negative. So
right.
At least change it up. But it is hard because Ampadu's our captain, and but I personally wouldn't change it.
I would go Ampadu and Tanaka personally. That would be my pairing when everyone's fit.
Yeah.
Let's throw Tanaka into the midfield then of this team. In goal, there's Sheffield United's clean sheet master, right? Michael Cooper is a decent shout. Have any other options for you that we should chuck in goal?
Yeah, I really like Anthony Patterson at Sunderland. I think he's been outstanding. But I think I would go along with Michael Cooper. I think he's the best goalkeeper in the EFL.
He's absolutely outstanding. What a summer pickup as well. In terms of, let's go one defender and maybe a couple of defenders, couple of strikers, and we'll put a team together. Okay. Gab, I'll let you take the reins on this one.
I would like an extra midfielder because I would go with Joe Bellingham of Sunderland. So I'm happy to put Natasha's Tanaka in midfield, but I'd also want Joe in midfield from Sunderland. In terms of defenders, I would maybe suggest Maxime Stev of Burnley.
He seems like a very good player so far this season. And they're another team that's been doing really well defensively, right?
Yeah, they've got a rock-solid defence so far this season. And another clean sheet against Swansea yesterday. So I think that pairing of Stev and CJ Egan-Riley has been pretty solid for Burnley. But I also think that they've got to start creating chances if they're going to sort of sustain their form this season.
Moving forward, any attackers that come to mind, especially from either of you, Tasha?
I forgot his name of that one from Norwich. He's doing really well. Is it Saint?
Or just Saint. Yeah, he's got to be in, hasn't he, really? I don't think we can leave out the top scorer in the league, Gab.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I'm a massive fan of Josh Sargent of Norwich, but I'll happily concede with I think you've got to have poor Saints in there.
And then leaves one more in for a striker, maybe more of a centre forward we should go for.
Centre forward. That's a good question. You got.
Could I chuck Hadji Wright's name in there, by the way, because Coventry haven't been a very good team this season. And I think he's got 7 goals now. He is the man who provides most of the attacking threat. Even when they've not played well under Mark Robbins, he seems to be able to find a goal. I don't think he's done enough to maybe make it into this team, but I think under a new manager, especially hopefully the injury he picked up at Sunderland isn't too serious. I think he could really kick on and maybe even challenge for the Golden Boot along with Josh Madger. I mean, is Madger the name we really should consider, or has he dropped off a bit of late with West Brom's recent form?
Well, Madger had a lot of goals in August, didn't he? And he's not quite been able to sustain his impact. If I'm being swayed by recency bias, I do like Tommy Conway of Middlesbrough. But I've also been really impressed by Wilson Isidore of Sunderland in terms of some of the finishes that he's produced. He produced a lovely goal on Saturday. So I think if you're pushing me for my selection, I would go for Isidore. But I've also got to give credit to Josh Sargent, Hadji Wright, as you've mentioned, Josh Madger. So there's a few options in there, but Isidore would be my pick.
Let's go with Isidore, I think. Gab, we'll let you make the final decision. Then we've got 2 Sunderland players in there to keep everyone happy. Right, the last thing I want to do on today's show is for both of you, we'll just do one each. One prediction you've got from the Championship that will happen over this international break. Have a quick think about it. I will go with, I think Luton will get a new manager. Mm-hmm. I like Rob Edwards a lot, but I think they've sunk too far right now. And what I saw on the weekend against Middlesbrough makes me think that they might switch out Rob Edwards. So that'll be mine. And hopefully, let's go for you, Tash, first, because anything to do with Leeds, or are you going elsewhere?
Yeah, I probably will get another injury. I hate international breaks, and it screwed us over, I think, a bit last year.
How many international players have you got going out this time around?
Oh God, I don't know off the top of my head. Because so it was Wales last year when we've done James and Rodon, and it just seemed to mess them up mentally with the season, I think.
Not a fan of international breaks then.
I normally get injuries as well. So.
Gab, for you, what are you going for?
I think Chris Wilder's going to be nursing a hangover for a few days after partying last night. It was quite interesting, wasn't it, seeing him dancing on the table, singing the Sheffield United songs. But you know what? Let him have his moment, because not every day you manage your own team to a derby victory. I suppose you've got to enjoy it, haven't you?
You spoke about on the Sheffield Derby preview you did how much he cares about that club, and I think that's just, it showed at full time, and it showed in the scenes afterwards. So it is great to see a manager be that connected with the fans as well. Yeah, we'll finish this week. You've been to Grimsby, right? Do you want to plug this yourself? I think I'll let you plug it yourself. It's out on Wednesday this week. What are we going to see?
We've got an interview with David Artell, Grimsby Town manager, at 5 p.m. on Wednesday out on our YouTube channel. So get yourself subscribed and stick those notifications or bells on, especially for Grimsby Town fans, so you can check out that interview. Really interesting interview. I'm a massive admirer of David as a coach and as a manager, and I rate him very, very highly. But I also like that he's a great person to interview, just because he's an open book. Very honest person, so you can within reason you can ask him anything, and he'll give you an answer, and so I really appreciated that. But so I think that makes some great content. The 20-minute version is going to be out on Wednesdays at 5:30, and then the full version is going to be out in a few weeks on my own channel, because I did speak to him for about an hour. But what we've got on Wednesday is the best bits. So that's condensed down, and check it out at Wednesday at 5 p.m.
Brilliant stuff. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Spotify as well, so you can hear the latest Sportsman Untitled episodes when they go live without having to wait for any of our tweets or social media posts. Thank you both very much for joining me. Tasha, hopefully Leeds cheer you up soon and you can start being a bit more positive. Gab, thank you very much as always. We'll see you soon. We'll be back next week to preview more Championship action. But that's it. See you next time on the Sportsman Untitled.